Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? It's John, some sports guy Hickman, along with Cody Davis. Welcome to a Friday edition of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Before we hop into the Texans this week, actually next week, the Locked On NFL Draft podcast relaunches on September 20th with brand new hosts. Eric Crocker brings you player scouting. Ryan Tracy brings you analytics. Follow the Locked On NFL Draft podcast on YouTube, the Odyssey app, or wherever you get podcasts. Cody Davis, it's Friday. Let's go ahead and hop into the rundown for the listeners and watchers out there in the world. Actually, we looked at some numbers, and we had somebody listen in Canada.
Hey, man, they have football fans everywhere, which means there's Texans fans everywhere. So I'm not really surprised by that. But as you know, today is Friday, which means we're going to be joined by our brother, our cousin, Mr. Brandon K. Scott from Sports Radio 610. Of course, in the second segment, we're going to talk about the season opener win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where Brandon get his thoughts. And then we're going to preview and see what are his thoughts with the Houston Texans' next game, which is this Sunday in Cleveland as they take on the Cleveland Browns. But John and listeners, to get this Friday installment of Locked On Texans kicked off, look, a lot of people, for some odd reason, did not think the Houston Texans would be sitting here at 1-0. We got the dub against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now there's going to be this challenge, this tough challenge that a lot of people believe that the Cleveland Browns are going to destroy the Houston Texans. And listeners out there, let me be honest. I do believe the Texans will fall short in Cleveland, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be as easy as a lot of people might think. And for you guys who heard the crossover edition that we did with Jeff on yesterday, I actually talked about that. I really got this game being close. If I'm not mistaken, I think I have the final score in the ballpark of 24-17. But John,
I went with 28-22 Cleveland.
Yeah, so both of us have a very close game, and I think Jeff has a close game as well. But John, when I take a look at this game, this is going to be a statement game for the Houston Texans, whether they win or lose, especially if they win. Because if they go out and compete and keep it close with the Cleveland Browns, then the rest of the season is going to showcase that, look, when you see the Houston Texans on your schedule, this is not a game, i.e. the Detroit Lions or the New York Giants or the New York Jets, where you say, oh, that's going to be an easy W. Every single day I'm talking to these players, I'm talking to members of the coaching staff, especially Coach Cully, and they all talk about blocking out the noise and proving everybody wrong. And John, when I sit here and I take a look at this game, we all got it close, which means there's going to be a possibility that the Houston Texans could still be in the running when it comes late in the fourth quarter. And what's the famous slogan? Any given Sunday, anything can happen. And if there comes a point where the Texans actually upset the Browns and they start 2-0, now you're looking at a whole different scenario where you were saying, but who would have ever thought the possibility of that happen? Look, listeners,
that would be funny, right?
Man, I'm gonna love it. Let me just say I'm gonna love it because I'm tired of the disrespect. But when I go back and I take a look at the Houston Texans 2021 season, it's going to work wonders for this team if they A, keep it competitive against Cleveland, and B, if they do the unthinkable, start off 2-0 and beat the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, we were the ones that done this team, the Tank Texans, or the team that was going to tank was
after the 53-man roster came out.
Right. I mean, when I say we, I don't necessarily mean you and I mean the media itself. Like we had done Houston throughout the entire offseason in the media to be the tank team. Several of Houston media has said that on Twitter. National media has also claimed that this team would be the worst team in the league, would lose every game, would be tanking for whichever quarterback that they think is a franchise quarterback coming out next year's draft. And then we come to week one, we were the only few that chose them to beat Jacksonville. But absolutely right. Throughout the week, we've talked about a couple of things with this team. Number one, we talked about Tim Kelly, his confidence, calling plays now that he's out of Bill O'Brien's correctional facility. Number two, we talked about how important it was for Cully to go out there and get his first win on his first Sunday as the first time head coach for the Houston Texans, right? So I think if they go out and get a dub, or it comes down to the real wire where it's a couple minutes left and just the better team won, which I think will be Cleveland, then absolutely right. I think the trajectory of what this team can be will change a little bit, right? It takes from 3 wins to maybe 4 or 5 wins, right? I still don't think they win a lot of games. Let me get that correct, clear. But they're trying their hardest to block out that noise. And it's hard. You turn on the radio, you turn on podcasts, you listen, you walk out the stadium. You may be going to get something to eat, and the fans say, "Hey, man, good to see you. Play for the Texans, right? Well, what you guys thinking?" Like, it's everywhere. And when I say we, I mean the media and fans. Some fans completely dismiss their win against Jacksonville. So if they do go out there and get a win against Cleveland, or they do go out there and make it a game to where it's a tough game for Cleveland, then I think people may sit back and say, well, even though they may end up with one of the worst records in the league, this isn't the team that we thought they were going to be. And the entire offseason, Cody, I only have heard maybe 3 or 4 people, 2 of which are right now on this show, say that they're going to lose a lot of games, but not because they're just so bad. It's just because the teams are that good. And we both called it early on that we could see this team defensively holding teams a little bit under than what they would want to do. And it'd be a lot of close games, just like last year. And then we said that last year about a team that was, 31st defense.
Mm-hmm.
Then I definitely believe this team can do a little bit better. I just think those players that are hearing all that noise, if they go out there and get a dub, it helps them continue trend upward. And it shuts up the media. And I'm all for that. Shut us up. Prove us wrong. My new package of Bill Barr just came in. My new treat. Trying to lose a lot of weight for this wedding, man. It's been going up and down. And in my household, my fiance and I, we like our certain type of sweets. She loves her sweets. And mine, personally, what my snack is a sandwich. I like a good sandwich. But it comes with too many carbs, right? With that bread, a lot of bread. So we try to find a middle, man. Like, what can we get to balance out her sweets, to balance out my carbs? And I tell you guys, Built Bar just got a new package. My cookies and cream just came in. If you do not know about all the flavors, which include flavors like double chocolate, salted caramel, mint brownie, and for you coconut lovers, they got the coconut as well. If you haven't chose or like one of the options, if you're like, well, I can try this, I also can try this. Don't forget that Built Bar has a mixed box where you'll get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. This is why it's important. You got 17 to 18 grams of protein, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. So not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too. Amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off at Built.com.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texas. And of course, you know what it is. We got our guy, our brother, Mr. Brandon K. Scott from Sports Radio 610. Brandon, what's going on, my man? And welcome back to Locked On Texans.
Man, as always, I appreciate y'all for having me. And you know what it is, man. Still coming off of a win, which
yes, sir.
I do believe was predicted by, I can't remember what your pick was, Cody, but I do believe that it was widely thought of, at least amongst local media, Houston media, that the Texans had a good chance to win. And they did that. The only thing I was off on, man, I thought it was going to be more of a slugfest. I didn't think it was going to be real high scoring.
Exactly.
So I did think the Texans was going to win, but they went and showed out a little bit more than I thought they would. So yeah, man, like I say, coming off a win, looking forward to what we see in week 2.
And speaking of Sunday's win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, one, what did you think of it? And two, did it kind of like change your outlook for this upcoming season, especially with the offense? Because going into this game, we all thought that we was going to see a boring game with the Texans just running the ball, and next thing you know, we look up and Tyrod Taylor threw for 293 yards, and Brandon Cooks had like 153 of them.
Yeah, so it didn't change my outlook of the season per se and what the team's potential is, but it definitely changed my outlook about the offense. Like I had to eat a lot of crow by the end of the night watching this offense operate, because I was one of the main guys that was skeptical. I won't even say one of the main guys. I think a lot of us have been skeptical about whether this offense would be able to push the ball downfield. Questions about whether Tyrod Taylor, and not just Tyrod Taylor, but if they had all the necessary weapons. I mean, outside of Brandon Cooks, I mean, I know Chris Conley's been around for a while. Nico Collins is a rookie. It didn't feel like they necessarily had the weapons or the quarterback to push the ball downfield the way that they did last year. And lo and behold, they definitely pushed the ball downfield. So like that is, to me, is no longer a thing or a criticism about the offense that I can viably use simply because they were able to do it. Now, they were able to do that because they set it up with the run, and I think that is going to be a theme of the offense. How well can they run the ball? How will they run the ball? Obviously, is going to tell you a lot about the run game, but I think it also is going to have a huge impact on what they're able to do downfield. Because once they were able to do that on that second drive, like the first drive was a wash, right? 3 and out. Tyrod Taylor almost threw a pick on his first throw, but on that second drive, they get a couple of runs, they bust a couple, and then the next thing you know, the play action, the play fake is in play, and you're throwing bombs downfield to Brandon Cooks, and you're getting the ball to Pharaoh Brown, and he's bouncing off of guys, and so the offense looked a lot better than I expected, particularly when it comes to getting the ball downfield. So I feel better about the product that we'll be watching. I don't feel like we're going to be watching boring football or boring offense for the rest of the season, but I'm going to have to see a little bit more to feel differently about the team's prospects for the entire season.
How confident are you in Tyrod Taylor after what you saw on Sunday, especially knowing, like I just mentioned, he threw for like 93, 95 yards. And by the way, that was the first time he threw for over 200 yards since 2018 when he was a member of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just gotta give him credit. I mean, I can't take anything away from the guy, and I would even point out too, and David Culley did some of this in his earlier press conferences in the week when asked about Tyrod and asked about the pass protection and all of that he thought that Tyrod maybe wasn't patient enough in the pocket. And in particularly, I look at the play, and I posted this on Twitter at Brandon K. Scott. I look at the play where he that first 50-50 ball that Brandon Cooks goes up to get, right? Where it was really impressive how he wins at the point of at the high point of attack there. And look, Tyrod Taylor had a clean pocket. Like, it wasn't the cleanest pocket, but it was a clean pocket, and he almost ran into the set. He almost scrambled and stuttered into the pressure. I can remember I look back and hear the call where the announcer is saying that he's under pressure. He actually wasn't. He was sort of inviting that pressure, but was still able to step into his throw and make a hell of a play. So, I feel a lot better about. I already knew he was a good leader. Already felt like, the fumble in the preseason aside, I always felt like he would be good and careful with the ball. He would take care of the ball. And obviously he's got, supreme athleticism, even, at 30 plus, and he showed that on Sunday. So I already felt good about those things. But as far as him getting the ball downfield and honestly being able to show, glimpses of what he was back when he was a full-time starter in Buffalo, I feel like Texans fans have to feel good about that. At least you got to feel a lot better about it going into week 2 than you did in week 1.
Yes, sir. Speaking of week 2, we're gonna touch on the game against the Cleveland Browns on the third segment. But Brandon, real quick, talking about Sunday's win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, is there anything you believe that you saw that the Texans can actually sustain moving forward throughout the rest of the season, whether that be the run game, whether that be something you saw on defense, or whether it just be the play of Tyrod Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, really, more than anything, I would say it would be the defense as a whole, forcing turnovers, the defensive line. I do think that the loss of Vincent Taylor is somewhat significant because he was playing really well in that game, and I think that they expected a lot of him as an interior defense, as a defensive tackle at the nose guard position throughout the season. Now, obviously, they're replacing him with Jaleel Johnson, who was in camp and knows the system and also
Look good, by the way, too.
yeah, exactly. Showed some signs and was really one of the guys that was a surprise cut. I know we've discussed that before, so I think he'll be able to step right in and it'll be seamless. It'll be an opportunity as well for guys like Ross Blacklock and Roy Lopez, second-year guy and a rookie, younger players on this team, two of the few young guys that the team is invested in. I think this is an opportunity for them to step up and to get more snaps and to show more of what they can do. But just generally speaking, I think that what the defense is about, what they stand for, I think is sustainable. Now, when they go up against a better offense, against a more experienced quarterback, everybody's not going to beat Trevor Lawrence in his first game. So eventually they're going to face some greater challenges than what they did this past Sunday. But I think that's probably the most sustainable thing. On the other side of that, I would say the thing that I really feel like they need to get right, especially if they want to be the team that they've told us that they want to be, that they purport themselves to be, they got to get that offensive line figured out. And I think it's just time. Guys miss time, COVID, switching positions. They're doing a lot on the offensive line. It's musical chairs, there's health issues, all of these things going on. I think once they get a little bit of continuity and get some reps in, maybe a couple of games in, you'll start to see a better offensive line. I didn't think that they were terrible necessarily on Sunday, but I think it was actually Cully had the quote too about Laramie Tunsil. And Laramie Tunsil I thought was fine, but he said there's a better Laramie there. And I think there's a better offensive line there in general. And so that's one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing, how they progress as they gel and as they get more familiar with each other.
We're back and better than ever. All eyes on the gridiron as teams are back on the field to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all of pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests at betonline.ag, they continue to be the number one source for everything football. Ladies and gentlemen, head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100 from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. Betting on the NFL doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by betonline.ag wherever you get podcasts.
That's all we're shooting to do. I don't know what it'll be like until I get to that point, you know what I mean? But that's what we're out here to do. We're not rolling over for anybody, you know what I mean? So teams are going to have to come out and play us, and they're going to have to see us, you know what I mean, and see what we got.
All righty, Texans fans, as Brandon and I continue here on this latest installment of Locked On Texans. As you know, the final segment, we're going to discuss the upcoming game that the Houston Texans have. And look, they have a big challenge coming up on Sunday. But at the same time, this is a team that, pretty shockingly, they do have an opportunity to start the season 2-0. So, Brandon, I'm gonna give my take on how I think this game might go. But Brandon, do you believe there is a chance that the Houston Texans can actually win this game? And if so, what do you believe the Texans have to do in order to pull off this upset?
Yeah, I think that there's always a chance, and I don't want that to be like a cop-out answer, but there is always a chance. I don't think that any team is unbeatable, and there's enough parity in the NFL to where the worst team in the league can beat the best team in the league. I feel like, in a single game, in an opportunity like this. So is there a chance? Yes. And again, not another cop-out, but honestly, if they play similarly to how they did on Sunday against the Jaguars, defense playing with his hair on fire, committing to the run, even when it's not necessarily successful. Like, they had some good runs, they had some not so good runs, but the fact that they were committed to it and stayed dedicated to it, I think kept the defense honest, and is honestly what opened things up downfield for them. So I think that for the Texans in most games, they are going to have to be near perfect. And I don't think they were near perfect against the Jaguars. I should say more so against the contenders that they played. The Browns and the Rams of the world and the Bills of the world. Teams like that, they're going to have to be near perfect. Now, they weren't that against the Jaguars, but they're going to have to be that against the Browns. Obviously, not turning the ball over is going to be a huge thing, which is a huge thing in pretty much every game. But I think when there's a talent discrepancy like this, you obviously can't beat yourself. So I definitely give them a chance. Now, do I think they're going to win? No, I'm going to stay with my picks the way I had them throughout the season. I didn't have them beating the Browns before the season, and beating Jacksonville at home, rookie quarterback, first-year head coach, is not going to be quite enough to get me to say, oh, now they can beat a Browns team that was up 22-10 on the Kansas City Chiefs at halftime. Now, I know they let that lead go and the Chiefs ended up coming back, but who do they not come back against? Like, who has not been a victim of this, of the Chiefs comeback? The Texans certainly have, right?
Yes, sir. That's what got us in this foolishness to begin with.
Right. So we know about all of that firsthand, and so that came as no surprise that the Chiefs would turn it up a little bit and figure it out. But yeah, no, I think that they got to do, they got to be close to perfect. I know we talk a lot about the tandem of Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney as edge rushers, but and the defense is really good. Like, it's a really good. I mean, of course, they got Denzel Ward, they got John Johnson that's in his first year there from the Rams, the safety there. Like, they have really good players. I think it was Tim Kelly, the Texans offensive coordinator, who said it seemed like, they have stars across the board. Or maybe it was actually Lovie Smith, the defensive coordinator, talking about the offense, which I'll get on in a second. But both of them, to a man, said, look, it seems like up and down for the most part. They got guys that are difference makers that you got to account for. Now, it was Lovie Smith who was talking about the offense, saying that it looks like they've got stars all over. Now, I don't know if everybody is a star, but they've got really, really solid players. I mean, that offensive line, although banged up, they got quite a few guys that either didn't practice on Wednesday or were still not practicing and or limited by Thursday, which is something to keep an eye out for. How strong, how healthy is that offensive line come Sunday? But man, it's going to be such a challenge. Like, when you look at the talent, you look at these two teams, what's the knock on the Texans? It's like, man, they don't have a lot of talent. It's going to take coaching and execution to really make up for the talent discrepancy. Whereas when you look at the Browns and you're like, man, they got dudes on both sides of the ball, Odell Beckham or not, which I believe Kevin Stefanski has already ruled Odell Beckham out for this game.
Yeah, he has.
But the dude Schwartz, I believe his name was the guy that stepped in for Odell and had a pretty good game. Obviously, Jarvis Landry does his thing. Baker Mayfield, I think, has grown and progressed as a quarterback. But I mean, the main thing that they do is run it between the tackles with those running backs, between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And so I think it's going to be a much different game than it was last year, because I don't think weather is going to be as much of a factor. So it won't be that slugfest that it was last year. I think that the quarterbacks will be able to open it up a little bit. But yeah, I give the Texans a slight chance. but I don't see it happening.
I also have the Texans a slight chance as well. I do believe the Cleveland Browns are going to win this game. But what I like most about this matchup, I think this is going to be a good measuring stick for the Texans to see how good this team can be. You know, a lot of people, and they still do, are expecting this team to be the worst team in the league. But and Brandon, you could attest to this as well. You know, you've been out there just as much as me, being out there, seeing the improved coaches, being out there, looking at the veterans, and you know, talking to these guys. This is not a team that's tanking, and I think one of, if not the biggest way the Texans can actually pull off this win is if they stop the run. Because with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, look, you mentioned last year, I understand it. Last year was a big reason why the Texans lost the game. I believe they lost like 10-7 or 13-7. But Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, both of those guys rushed for over 100 yards. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Browns also, you know, they total number was like 220, 230. If anybody is expecting that version of the Texans defense, that is where I would step in and say, even if the Texans still come up short, and I do believe come up short, this is not going to be a blowout like a lot of people are expecting. To that, you say what?
Well, I'm just glad that you brought up the run, or them defending the run, because they defended the run well against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville also did not run the ball very much. You know, they weren't committed to it in the beginning, and then they found themselves down early and having to pass more than they had, you know, earlier in the game. So for me, this is not only just their first test against a very good team. I mean, it's the second game of the season. The first team that they played was Jacksonville. So it's the first good team that they play. Definitely a measuring stick to see, you know, how good is this team. If they beat the Browns, and they look impressive, you know, you're like, you have to totally kind of reconsider, okay, what's going on over there? What exactly is this? If they play them tight, if they play them tough, the way they did a lot of games that they lost last year that were one-score games, if they play them tough and, you know, don't beat themselves, kind of the stuff that I was talking about earlier, you'll also kind of look at them in a different light probably. But specifically, though, the point that you mentioned about going up against the run, they were terrible at that last year. Most of their guys up front, or, you know, a lot of those guys up front are different guys now. So they have revamped that defensive line, and you think that they should be better against the run, but this will be the first test of the truest of tests. I don't know if they'll face another run game like this, a better run game than this. So
I don't think they will either.
Exactly. So if you are wondering what did the Texans do to address the fact that they couldn't stop the run to save their lives last year, here's a good measuring stick for that. How good will they be against the run going forward? I think this performance is going to show you a lot.
And speaking of this performance, you touched on it a little bit. You heard what Justin Breed had to say when I asked him about the possibility of the Texans starting the season off 2-0. Brandon, what would this do for you? Because, I mean, look, I got to ask this question. What would this do for you and just your outlook and the projection of the Texans if they go into Cleveland? This is not going to be held off of 16 and Kirby and you got the crowd behind you. If they go into Cleveland, win that game, and they are 2-0 to start a season where so many people believe that they was going to go 0-17.
Yeah, it would just, for one, it would just be the first game that they win that I didn't expect them to. And I've held out hope, and I wouldn't say an expectation, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I picked them to win the 4 games that I picked them to win, but there's a good chance that they could lose one of those 4 games. And there's obviously a good chance that they could come in and win one of those, 13 games that I picked them to lose. So it will certainly be the first of that. I want to go back to a point that you mentioned earlier about tanking and how this is not a team that's tanking. Players don't tank, not football players anyway. You really can't. Like maybe you can mail it in on a player or two, but your safety relies on you being out there alert and kind of, giving it not necessarily giving it your best every play, but I don't think that football players, I don't even feel like they're oriented to tank. Like if you have it in you to go out there and play football, you probably don't have it in you to not compete and to tank. So so that doesn't surprise me that they're not tanking. I think the biggest surprise is that the team is probably a little bit better than what it was given credit for. I mean, let's be honest. The team didn't really make a lot of sense to us. You know,
boy,
a bunch of guys on 1 year, 2 year deals from all over the place. Funny enough, about 10 guys, 8 to 10 guys that actually used to play for the Browns. They got a bunch of former Browns on the team. But I digress on that. They just got a bunch of guys. And it's like, okay, all these guys are signing 1 to 2 year deals with the Texans. They're not getting any better deal than that, or whether it's years or money or just being with a better team. If these are the players that are settling for playing for the Texans, you know, what is really going on here? So I think that's part of why the idea of tanking came about, because it's a bunch of dudes that's not going to be there for the long haul, or theoretically not going to be there for a long haul whenever this team does have a chance to be good again. So it gave off that energy and that idea that they weren't really trying, but they brought in a bunch of dudes that are trying, you know, for whatever that's worth. So look, I still don't think it's a super talented team, but it is a veteran team. It's an older team, and they could surprise some people. I mean, a 2-0 start. I mean, look, like I said, it would definitely raise my eyebrows and have me a lot more interested in watching the home team than, like, what did I tell you before? I mean, I'm here for the opponents. I'm here to see the teams that's coming into NRG Stadium as opposed to the team that plays there. You know, half the schedule. But this would change things a little bit. I would definitely be a lot more interested in the team, how it's developing, looking at these younger players, especially if there's some of the guys that are contributing. And so, yeah, like I think this is a hell of an opportunity for the Texans to change people's minds, because, again, you can't do with this game what you did with Jacksonville, which is to say, oh, it's just Jacksonville.
Exactly.
Or when they did it in the preseason against second stringers and third teamers and guys and practice squad guys and guys that's not going to be in the league next year and all that. Oh, it's just the preseason. This would be the first win in the first outcome period, I think, where it would be no excuses, no narrative about this is why this happened this way or didn't happen this way, you know, because of the circumstance. You know, it's week 2. It's a Super Bowl contender. John McClain, I'm pretty sure John McClain picked the Cleveland Browns to go to win the Super Bowl.
He got them winning the entire thing.
and John McClain basically been in this game since the very beginning. So I mean, I don't know if he's shooting from the hip with that or not, but you know, it just gives you an idea for how much respect the Browns are commanding right now. And so if the Texans go in there and beat them at the dog pound, you gotta show a little respect. You gotta put a little bit of respect on their name after that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brandon K. Scott from Sports Radio 610. Brandon, really quick, where can our listeners follow you at on social media?
Yeah, so I'm at Brandon K. Scott on Twitter. I'm at B Scott from Hiram Clark on Instagram. And y'all can also check out the B Block podcast, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And in Sports Radio 610 as well. Most of the social media activity that you see from Sports Radio 610 is either something that I'm doing or something that I'm okaying. So check that out, and there's plenty of ways to get with us.
And that's going to conclude another installment of Locked On Texans. As always, please remember to follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Follow my co-host John, Some Sports Guy Hickman, at Some Sports Guy. And ladies and gentlemen, our Twitter page for Locked On Texans is back. So please be sure to check out the Twitter page and hit that follow button at Locked On Texans. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.